Cool. All right, I think we're live. So let me get my stuff set up here. I've got a plethora of windows running. But yeah, we're live. Welcome to my first live stream of PHP Puzzles. I hope to do these more often in the future. If you're not familiar with PHP Architect in the magazine, we come out each month. Usually have 6, 7, or 8 articles. One of the regular columns is PHP Puzzles by Sherry Wheeler. You can also follow her on Twitter at SyntaxSeed. And it's an enjoyable column. This font size for this doesn't matter too much. This is just a website, phparch.com. But this column is enjoyable and gives you hands-on challenges each month. She ends her column with a new puzzle for you to work on, and in the following month she goes over the solution. So the puzzle I'm looking at is from October 2020, the parallel running issue. Let's click over to the puzzle. And it's the improved directions one. Let's make sure, right, there we go. It looks at pruning redundant items from a list of directions. And the challenge is, given a list of uppercase compass directions, which represent the same distance of travel in the listed direction, we take it in an array, which might look like this. Right, a direction is an array. Each capital letter represents a direction on the compass, and we're just sticking to strictly north, south, east, or west. No diagonals. Each one of these would represent a step that you might tell someone to move in a game or in real life, potentially. There are some redundancies in these, though. And we're going to work on some code to clean those up. Because if you step north and then step south, you're right back where you started from. And we can remove those from the list of directions that you have to walk and still end up at the right place in the end. In this issue, she shows 2 solutions. I've been noodling a different one approach. I'm not 100% sure if it's any better. Right, any working solution is better than nothing. But I want to take a functional approach and see if we can use array chunk and array map to do this with as few loops as possible. So let's get started. And to do that, I'm going to bounce over to Phpstorm, and I did bump up my font size, but I may need to bump it up again. Oh, yes, I'm not wearing my orange shirt. I just didn't want to run upstairs to get it. But maybe next time I will put it on. But thanks for the feedback, Discord. So where was I? Okay, I've just created a quick empty project in Phpstorm. This is just the editor I'm most comfortable with and most experienced with. You can do this with Sublime or just Vim or any regular text editor. We don't expect the solutions to require any sort of frameworks or get super fancy. You can go as in-depth as you want with it. But yeah, so let's... And I'm not going to do TDD or anything fancy, so if that's what you're looking for, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Let's take the starting directions from the PDF. So I'm in another window. I'll copy and paste them. And I'll iterate through my thinking of this. So if there's a pair of directions that are opposite, so if north and south are paired together, or east and west are paired together, they cancel out. And by paired together, I mean they're next to each other, right? They're adjacent to each other in the sequence. And we could remove that pair without affecting where we end up. One way to look for pairs that I was thinking of is to chunk them. So we would do, oops, I did not mean to do that. Why did you send me over there? OBS is being weird. Okay, pairs could do array chunk, and we'll take directions. Okay, there's some weird hotkey I have to fix here. Tools, nope, over here. Oh, maybe assigning hotkeys when I may be typing code was not a good idea. All right, so hotkeys are gone. Array chunk is, I think, fairly niche array function that PHP has, and what it will do is it'll take a big array and chunk it into parts. Let's just double check exactly what it does, because all right, splits an array into chunks. Each chunk has a fixed number of elements, which is the size that you give it. So in this case, I'm going to give it 2, and that should give us pairs of items. Let's just make sure it does that. And to get this code running, I'm on Windows, which is not usually my daily driver, but for streaming it seems to work, and I put 7.4 on here. So let's just get the built-in web server running. And how do I make this? Is that how I do it? I always forget and have to look this part up. Now the built-in web dev server that comes with PHP is running. I'm running 7.4, which I just downloaded. I find that's the easiest way to get Windows running, or PHP running on Windows. I don't typically develop on Windows, and I wouldn't necessarily host a PHP app on it just for familiarity. But the hurdle to getting it working, PHP working on Windows, is not very high. And you don't really need something like WAMP or XAMPP to do this. So then in our browser, let's go see. I should be able to go to localhost 8080. Permission unknown. All right, yeah, so I messed up one of the switches here. Is it -T that tells it what the document root is? If not, I'll have to look it up. Yep, that was it. All right, let's bump up the font size. Oh yeah, I usually, of course, normally I use Xdebug and stuff to do this, but so that's what array chunk has done, and it's created pairs for us. So we know if we have a pair that goes north-south, I should be able to remove that. And I think Sherry's watching. So if I'm going off in the wrong direction, I bet she can jump in. And then this other pair for west-east can be removed. So how do we do that with functions? The next thing to run are pairs through, and I'm building up to iterations because I will have to do this as I remove things, keep testing this until I can't remove anything else. Oops, this is annoying me. This should be lowercase y. Then I can use array filter to take out, and I'll need a function in there. So our directions will equal array filter, and array filters, and if you start using array filter, array map, and some of these other ones, one annoying thing is that the order of arguments is different, and I just lost the I'm also not being anyway. So array filter takes an array and then I give it a callback. Okay, we can do that. So I just started typing out array filter. We give it our array, which are our pairs, and then a function to test if an item should be kept. Oh, and this is just going to be a wrapper. Oh, let's create a hash that will let us look up opposites. So the opposite of south is north. The opposite of north is south. This is redundant, but we need them all. Opposite of east is west, and the opposite of west is east. Our function will need to use opposites, so we can pull that into the closure. And what are we going to check? If the first item in our pair, hopefully I'm mentally keeping track of this is how it's working. If the how's this going to work? Oh, okay. So item 0 would have our n or s or whatever. So if the opposite of the item 0 is the second item, we would want to remove this. So I think we return false for array filter, and return true will keep things. Let's double check that. All right. Iterates over each value. If the callback function returns, the current value from the array is returned. Yeah, so if we return true, we're going to keep it around. Yeah, there's no reason to keep all this memory and like memorize all these little behaviors. The php.net docs are useful and have you covered. So if for some reason you're coding without the internet, you're probably have other issues. And we don't want to assign it, we want to test. So if it is its opposite, we do not want to keep it, so we return false. Otherwise, we return true. Let's see if that works. Let's look at the before and after of things. We'll put a divider there. Just, let's see. That didn't work. Or, no, it didn't. Why didn't it work? This is why we're streaming. We have the same array both times. Oh, because I just output the pairs. This should be pairs, before and after. If we wanted to turn that back into our unchunked thing, we'll have to figure out a way to reverse that. Whoops, I didn't do this on the stream, so let me bounce you back to see what was wrong. This directions, I don't want to override the input array here. I still want to just work with my pairs. I want the pairs without the pairs of opposites in them. So that should do it. It still did not work. This is where I have to dive into the function. So we're still getting the same thing, which means everything's returning true. All right, just make sure what item looks like. Right, so item 0, so this corresponds to this first thing. did we do wrong? And oh, it's not 0 and 2, it's 0 and 1 for 1. So item 0 will give us the first thing in our pair. So in our first pair, that is an n. So using that as the index for the opposites hash will tell us what its opposite is, which is s. So if s is what's the second item, which is, I now have the correct index for that, will return false, and we will not keep this in our array. Let me save that, and now let's see if that worked. Cool. I knew it would get us this far. We've removed any pairs that were in our original array, and we did that, although PHP did that internally with loops probably, we used the array functions, which can be really performant. So yeah, so this first pair gets removed. We kept this second pair, and then we can remove this third pair, because if you go west and then go east, you're back where you started from, but we're going to keep south and west, and we have north. We can't remove that at all. That doesn't mean we're done. Let's see, what's the opposite of array chunk? Do we have an opposite for that? I'm actually not sure if there is. But could you array reduce it? You know, when in doubt, there's always Google as well. Opposite of array chunk in PHP. Spell, here's a little gist. Yep, PHP doesn't have a built-in way to flatten it. Array reduce would do it. There we go. That's what we'll do. Yeah, you could loop through it, but oh, there's even a nice one-liner like this. Just to keep my code more readable, let's call this unchunk. Array unchunk. Yeah. And I know it's wrapping a bunch of other stuff, but I think that's okay. Eventually we'll wrap some of these in other functions, and maybe even a class, depending how long this takes. But so I dragged that function to unchunk it and created an array there, or a function. Let's see. So after we clean it up, now we can unchunk it, the pairs that we had, and now we can compare directions. Let's see if that actually unchunks things. Hey, that looked like it did. So without any loops, although I'm not sure we're done yet. Let's look. So we started with these 9 elements. We removed the redundant ones. So n going north, then going south, that's redundant. We can remove that. Then we east and go north, that's not redundant. North, and then if we, after going north, if we go west, that's not redundant. Oh, but then we go east. We got rid of that one. And then we go south, west, and north. None of those get removed. In our new solution, we go east, then we go north, then we go south. So we have another pair that we have to remove. And then we go west and north, but we don't have to remove that. If we were to chunk it again, it will keep it because it's only comparing these in pairs. So I think what we have to do is then pop off the first item, and I'll create a new set of pairs to compare and reduce. So we're gonna, now we are gonna have a loop. But before we do that, we have array unchunked. I'm gonna create a function called clean directions that will take our input array. We'll call it directions just so it'll make the copying and pasting easier. I'm going to cut and paste this, but most of the time I would use, oh, let's do that. So I'm going to put all, how's it go? Yeah, we don't want this in our output stuff. All this is one direction, not the boy band. Control Alt M. Oh, whoops! You're not watching me code. Anyway, so I need to have a way to loop and pull off items from the front of the directions array after I take one pass and clean it. So to do that, I'm going to create a new function that wraps this that takes care of at least the step of chunking, filtering, and unchunking it. To do that, Control Alt M is the shortcut in Phpstorm to extract a method or function. I'm going to call it clean directions. OBS is not capturing this, but you'll see it all pop into. Nope. Did it do that? It did. So now it wrapped all that for me and puts a return. I'm just going to stick them at the end here. Yeah, that's one of the things I have to get practice at. There's a bit of a lag with the stream as well. And I keep forgetting to switch back to code. So I'll let it catch up while I review this. So I have my clean directions is now just an array, and I don't want to pass it pairs. I want to pass it directions. So I seem to have messed up which things I had, which lines I had selected for Phpstorm to pick up for me, or create the method from. Let's just make sure that didn't change anything. So now we're still doing that one step. It's all hidden behind the clean directions method function. All right, back to Firefox real quick. We'll make sure nothing has changed. Okay, except my print R. All right, we're still good. Back to the code editor. How do we do this? As long as we have something in a directions array, so we're going to create one called cleaned. That's empty. While Hopefully this isn't going to be an infinite loop and bring everything to a halt. So hopefully, if the stream cuts out, that'll be why. Let's just put a little safeguard in here while x and x is less than 100. All right, now we shouldn't have an infinite loop. We're gonna clean directions. After we've cleaned it onto the cleaned array, we're just gonna pop on. We're just gonna take the thing at the front of the array, and I believe that's array shift. We'll do that. Oh, but that will actually remove the item, which actually we do want to do that. And now reduce the number of items in count. Oh, let's do that. We'll echo what loop we're in, since we have that now, and print r cleaned. And let's see. We'll show our loop. Okay, I guess I can do that all in one line. And each time we can see what's going on, we'll look at directions. Remember, the first time we run this in the first loop, we're going to take out 2 pairs. And then the second time we should take out another one and maybe a loop until the directions array is empty. It's either empty because we removed whatever's at the front of it after cleaning things. So that's one way to remove things from directions, and the other way is removing the adjacent pairs that are in there from the start or get created as we clean up each iteration, or clean up the pairs. Let's see. All right, let's go look. There's no red marks. Don't have any PHP errors. We know the code down here works and should do its job. So let's see. All right, I think we'll have a couple of iterations. Oh, I'm gonna jump over and just show our starting directions, but you don't need to see that on the stream. Ay. All right, let's look at it. So this is our starting array: north, south, east, west, north. What happened? Is that correct? I'm just gonna move. Nope. Ooh, the confusion. Let's just change the output a little bit. So, right, the first time it takes out the north-south, it's going to keep east-north. It's going to take out west-east. Then it's going to keep southwest, and the end will be at the end. So that's still right. And after we get that onto our cleaned array, we're going to pop the east from the beginning of this, and then we'll clean up these pairs, which leaves us with just west and north. Oh, and there's a little optimization, right? So that's not going to do anything. Right, so those aren't opposites, so we'll end up keeping them. And our final directions are east, west, and north. Is that what we would have expected? Because I think east, north. Why did that north get? Oh, the confusion. Let's just jump over to Sherry's solution and see if I'm even on the right track or where we're going wrong here. Does she give the solution for cleaning up the first one? It should boil down to just north. Oh. That makes sense. Because even though I've been keeping stuff after removing the first item, I ended up with this east-west pair. So I ended too early. So there's something odd about my approach. Right, because I can't just assume that the first item, I'd have to loop through this, the cleaned array one more time. There's no guarantee that looping through it one more time would clean. I'd have to. That's interesting. Yeah, this is the fun of live coding. So I can't. Why? Let's look. Right, my solution finished because it had nothing else to process in the directions array. After this, it just tacked on, and it just said the cleaned one is done. But I guess before I have to compare, before I just blindly add something to my cleaned array, I have to decide whether to keep it or not. Because if I'm adding the opposite of what's on at the end, I can just chuck it. All right, let's try that. So we can't just add to the cleaned array what's at the end of the cleaned directions array. Let's see. So the first item we'll get from array shift. And we only add it to the cleaned array if it's not, well, the opposite of what's at the end of the cleaned array. How are we going to test for that? If the first item is not equal to the opposite of, oh, I don't have my opposites anymore. That should be another function. All right, let's create Yeah, Sherry gave me a hint in chat, so I think we're on the right track. Each time a pair is removed, the bookends around it might be another pair. So you can't end until you had an attempt with no removals. Right. Let's do a function is opposite. So if we had A and B, let's move opposites into there. So it's basically this, right? If opposites of A is B, return false, right? So if we're passing in north here and B is south, this would return true. False, so that we want to return true if they are opposites and return false if they're not. And then in our function here, we won't use opposites, but we'll return the opposite of is opposite direction. Item 0 and item 1. Hopefully I haven't totally messed up everything. And actually the best way to test that would be to go back and run it and make sure we're still getting the same output. So let's see. Oh, syntax error. All right, let's fix that real quick. And net Phpstorm is highlighting that for me. For now, I'm just gonna put that there. Right, a pair might span chunks. That's why shifting just the first one off and producing a new set of pairs I thought would work. All right, we're on the right track here. Refactoring to have and is opposite direction didn't mess anything up. So let's see. So now we know what first item is. The last item of cleaned. It's too bad there's, I think maybe, well, I'm not going to say. It's so just to make the last cleaned is going to be cleaned, and the index of that is going to be count of cleaned minus 1. Now we can do if not is opposite direction. So as long as the first item in our array is not the opposite of the last item in the cleaned array, we'll add first item to it. Otherwise, we're just going to get rid of it because we don't need it. Which means eventually directions should be empty. And we might be good to go. All right, let's see. Oh, I guess I can hide this. That's not so useful. Was the solution should just be north? All right, I'm missing something then. Or we're not north, south, east, north, west, east, south, west. west, north. Is that maybe, do we? I think this comment, let me see. So I'm looking at the PDF. And since Sherry's on the Discord, although, what, like 30 seconds behind, she can double check that this, maybe this solution isn't right. We're going to take out north, south. We're going to keep east. We're going to keep north because it's followed by west. We're not going to keep this west-east pair, which then leaves east, north, south, west, north, which means we get rid of the north, south in the middle, which gives us east, west, which would give us north. So, all right, yep, nope, that's correct. I can't assume, I can't assume that after a pair I keep that, although I'm thinking once I have my, if I should keep my west, if I'm going to add the opposite onto the end of cleaned, I have to get rid of the item at the end of cleaned because they cancel out. So if they're not, okay, so if they're not, all right, let's see. If they are the opposite, I have to do something. If not, I will add, so I think if it is, then I would array pop cleaned. Because if I'm going to add the opposite direction to it, I have to get rid of the pair, not just one side of it. This should get us there. Yes. It gets us to the solution we expected, which is north. Let's look at some other ones. So I'm going to go to the PDF. We know our solution works for one set of directions. Let's see if it works for the second one thrown in here. I'll just comment these out. So if we have north, east, east, southwest, east, southwest. Yeah, so I'm just putting in a new array. We don't need to shouldn't need to change anything else. And let's look at this. And our final solution should be north, east, east, south, southwest. Niswa. All right, here we go. All I did was change the input. North, east, east, southwest. NEESSW. NEESSW. Cool. And let's just grab one more. It's just we don't need to look at the intermediary steps. I'll get rid of a lot of this debugging output. We'll do that outside of here. Yeah, that should work. Let's see. South, east, west, west, north, south. Let's see. Right, south, we'll keep it for now. The east, west would cancel, which would bump up that west up there. And, well, southwest, north, the north-south will cancel out at the end there. So we'll also get west, west, and, or just one west. Anyway, I think I've been streaming too long. South and west. Okay, so now we're getting the answers that Sherry got, which gives me a little more confidence that this solution will work. Is it a good approach? There were a lot of weird edge cases that I did not expect from having to keep track of what's in the cleaned array versus the main or our input array. So that was unexpected. I still I like how in one pass we can clean a bunch of directions potentially if they're paired, if array chunk pairs them together. And having array chunk and array filter do that inside, I think means most of those comparisons and iterations get done by PHP core, and that could be potentially faster if you have a lot of arrays, a lot of elements in your array, and they happen to line up. The fact that we shift off an item and have to check the clean thing again was an edge case, but then it should create a new sets of pairs for that next pass to look at. So I mean, I'd have to benchmark. Potentially there's fewer loops you have to do through here, even though the number of comparisons is probably about the same. Just for fun and to wrap things up, let's put this all into a class since yep, she's chatting. Yep. So, right. So I'm not going to reply in Discord. She's saying, right, array chunk grabs only even pairs. Your shifted off element might belong in a pair later, which is why I had to add that step of before I just jam something onto the end of my cleaned array, I have to check if it's going to create an opposites pair. And if it does, I have to take it off of the cleaned array and also discard the one that was at the end of the cleaned of our incoming directions array. I wonder if there's any neat way to visualize this that's more horizontal, but we're going kind of long, and I think Eric wants me to post the podcast we recorded last week before the holidays. So let's wrap this up into a little class, and we'll call it even, because I think in future puzzles reuse this. Yeah, Sherry says she's never encountered array chunk. It's a very niche function to know about. I learned about it because I had to take user data for votes and group it to create soccer formations back when I worked at DC United. I think that's where I created it. Oh, she's suggesting show the solutions in the mag. We'll look at one solution, but if you want to check out the full column and Sherry's solutions, if you're not already a subscriber, head over to phpart.com. I'd love it if you'd subscribe, or if you join the mailing list, you'll get a coupon code for a free issue, and you can use that for the October, right, issue that has this puzzle in it. Right, but before we finish up here, let's create a class. That's going to take a set of directions and output the cleaned ones. And off screen, I'll refactor this into another file altogether. I'll call it direction cleaner. Scrubber. I like direction scrubber. Does this need to be a class? There's a bunch of related methods that may not have use outside of the class, so for now we'll do that. Why don't you like? Nope, let's oh. Yeah, if you're following along, Phpstorm is doing a lot of the work for me. It'll have just one public method that will clean stuff. I'm always misspelling that. It won't take any parameters because we'll pass in directions as a, and it's gonna, so that's what this does. And we may not want to modify it. Well, for memory reasons, you probably would. Just thinking, let's just do that. Once it's in here, we can clean this just in here. And return cleaned. Array unchunk. Well, now having done this, where do we use it? I'm missing where I used it. Oh yeah, down here in clean directions. Private. Clean directions. That was the only place we called that. And array unchunk. I mean, it was nice for readability before, but now it's all part of a class. So we can just get rid of that. There's a little overhead, right, with calling functions, so there's no need to keep it around when it's buried inside of a class. And we'll also move this inside the class. You may be wincing because I'm not sorting these or re-camel casing the function names. Generally method names I'd like to use camel case for, but I'll do that later, maybe. Is opposite direction. Now we can just do this and this there. Right, directions, and then scrubber. Generally, you may be asking, why is he putting this in a class? Putting stuff in classes when it's even something as procedurally built as what we did here. If we use this code in a lot of places and then we came up with a better direction scrubber, we could just replace the class. And for testing, you could put in a mock class if you needed to, if it was a dependency for elsewhere. And also so yeah, that's why I would put it in a class. We'll look at one of Sherry's solutions in a sec here. So if we all adhere to a direction scrubber interface, you could swap out different solutions without affecting the calling code. Makes your code less coupled, easier to update. Let's just make sure that me putting it in the class hasn't messed up anything. I can type, seriously. And before I reload it, yeah, Phpstorm is not giving me any issues. Okay, it's just annoyed about. What are you annoyed about? PHP doc for non-existing argument. Oh, right, because I renamed it. There, are you happy? It's always going to reduce and return an array, so I think I can do that. I could even go whole hog, right? Yeah, Phpstorm does not think I'm running 7.4, so I don't know what it's complaining about. This is going to return a bool. Is it Boolean? Oh, why don't we, for future streams, get this set up? I'm just going to tell it that we're using PHP 7.4, so it doesn't. So it gives me better insights. What's wrong here? Create class? No. Maybe it is just bool, or maybe it's either. Make protected. Give me little shortcuts there. Scrub is going to return an array. Directions is an array. All right, now it's nice and type hinted. The type hints aren't going to do a whole lot functionally, but they do help document stuff. And right, I don't even need you. Go away. Type hints are great for that. And you're a string. There's two. I don't think there's a car, so you can't just say this is a one. Character string. All right. Let's just make sure before we end here. We've refactored. Refactoring means the code underneath works changed, but the result should be the same. Type string null given. All right, let's read there. Null give. So at some point I called a null. So I should make it nullable, or should I figure out why I passed a null? There will be a null because sometimes the array. So, all right. On line 34. All right, let's go look at line 34. I think this is a little optimization. This must be happening the first time. I go through the array. The first time we go through this, the cleaned array will be empty, so there's nothing to check. Before the type hints PHP was being its usual forgiving self, but we can add a little check if it's not null. So if we do get something from last cleaned, we can get other errors. Null given another place, line 58. if not is null. So there are going to be times when array chunk, it's not always going to produce pairs if there's an odd number of items. So we can only check if there's if things are opposite direction if we have two things. Otherwise, we're going to keep it. We don't want to throw it away, so we want to return true there. Yeah. So type hints led us to add a couple more explicit safeguards in the code, so that was nice. And those, at least by doing those checks, we're not calling a function. So that might have saved us a little overhead. Probably not enough to worry about, but let's just double check. Okay, bounce. So well, now I have it in the class. And that's always a nice place to end. Sherry's approach is a little different. I'll show you the first one, and if you're really interested in the second, do check out the issue. So her first attempt at the solution is she can squish the directions together, cut out any pairs by comparing instead of looking at them as an array of directions, I think she implodes it into a string. And then she can use string replace to find any pairs and eliminate them. And as long as you are getting some replacements from it, let's go look real quick at how string replace works, because this is a neat way to do it. It's another way to reduce the number of comparisons you have to do within one loop, and her solution obviously is a lot shorter than mine. But you can pass string replace. It has this optional fourth parameter, and notice in the documentation, in the documentation, it returns it by reference. There's a couple of functions in PHP that do this, and usually all right, let's back it up to the beginning. String replace, you give it a string, tell it what things to look for and replace within it, what sequences of characters, and it'll return the cleaned up string. Your subject is the thing you're passing into it. There's no way to know how many replacements it made. Sometimes that information is useful, so if you do need it, you can pass it an optional fourth parameter. This parameter doesn't affect the function's operations, but it gives you a little bit of data back along with your cleaned up string. It's called count. You can call it whatever you want, but this is what's called in core. And right, if passed, it'll be set to the number of replacements performed. So if PHP had to make 12 replacements for you, count would be 12. If it didn't have to make any, it would be 0. She's using that to her advantage in her solution. So, because we'll loop through these, and the reason we have to, she loops through these is the same reason I had to loop through it multiple times to get rid of pairs. Because taking something out might create new pairs in the sequence. But as you can keep running that through your cleaned up string through string replace until string replace makes no replacements. Then you know you've gotten rid of all the pairs. And the things to replace just enumerate what opposite pairs look like. So if you go north and then south, or south and then north, east and west, or west and east, any of those are redundant, you can remove them. And then to get it back out to an array, she uses string split without any delimiter, and I think that just explodes everything back into an array. Since she used implode, I think you could just use explode, and that would have been a nice complement. Explode. I don't think it's much different than string split. And we're getting into the weeds. This is a good place to stop. Right. Let me show you the... So, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I certainly learned a bit about array chunk and its foibles, and running into those edge cases. The PHP Puzzles column has been running, I think, without going through and looking at it, since at least March or April. So there's a good set of them for you to work through if you're looking for something to do over the holidays or any downtime at the end of the year here to keep your programming skills sharp. This one came from the October issue. It's PHP Puzzles Improved Directions by Sherry Wheeler. If you check it out and you've got a solution, share it somewhere, let me know, tag Sherry in it. We'd love to see it. I'm Merida on Twitter, or you can tag PHP Arch on Twitter. If you're a subscriber and you're not already in our Discord, email me and I'll send you an invite link. You could share your solution in our Discord there. And also leave a comment, hit like, do all the YouTube things that you're supposed to do. Leave a comment, subscribe, help us reach other developers. On that note, thanks, and I hope you enjoyed it. Do, 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 do.